This is Advisor 3.0, a show designed to help you as a financial advisor elevate your professional practice, transform your clients' lives, and take your business to the next level. I am Abraham Okuzoya. Welcome to the show.
Good morning and welcome to Advisor 3.0, and I'm delighted to share today that we're joined by Lisa Johnstone from VWM. Thank you for making the journey down to be with us today. Really excited about what we're going to chat through today. Just for people that don't know Lisa, as I do, do you want to talk us through who is Lisa? Okay. A little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Lisa Johnstone. I'm the Managing Director of VWM Wealth. So we're a boutique financial planning firm in Glasgow, team of 9.
Perfect. And tell us, how did this all begin then? How did you end up at VWM?
So I joined VWM as a paraplanner. I had come back from a year's backpacking and travelling, and previous to that I'd worked as a paraplanner, financial planner in a firm in Belfast, Johnstone Campbell, and that was just really straight out of university where I had studied financial planning.
And I think in our kind of sort of catch-up call before today's session, you were sharing with me that actually at the time you studied financial planning at university, which I've got to confess, Lisa, was a first for me. I didn't even know that it was a course that was offered. Yeah. And I think you shared at the time that there was only 3 universities that actually offered financial planning. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that was at the time. So I just really picked the course based on having done some, economics, business studies, that sort of stuff after I had done other studying, and just had thought, well, if nothing else, I'll know what to do with my own money.
Yeah,
and it sounded interesting rather than maybe like a straightforward sort of business discipline. And I did really enjoy it. I loved it. And so there were 3 universities at the time. I think they're probably about 10 now. There are quite a few more. But it was quite interesting for me whenever I first went into the working environment, because most people in financial planning have just fallen into it kind of by accident. And I remember going in, to my sort of first office environment, and they were like, "What do you mean you meant to be here, or you designed, things to be here?" We all just sort of, ended up working for an insurance company or something, and then, got into financial planning. So I think now it's, obviously a lot more common that people will study financial planning, financial services, that sort of thing at university, and then that is a route into lots of different things, but financial planning.
Silly question. Is it anything like financial planning today?
Yeah, I mean, it was really good for me because I was exempt from lots of professional exams. So a lot of the study content was lined up, and the university had a really good partnership with the PFS at the time, so that what you were studying was going to be practical. I had sort of planned to go to maybe like a more traditional, like red brick university and a more academic course, and then pick this instead. And that was a good choice. That has worked out well for me because the course was really pretty vocational, pretty practical. It wasn't just the academia. And then whenever it came to doing a lot more exams and advanced things later on to be chartered, I didn't really struggle with that because I'd already studied it all. I'd done all the corporate finance exams and maths calculations part. So it did really set me up for quite a good platform to get chartered, and to just to have some background before you get into the real world.
And you say then that from that point of view, not only from the kind of what I call the hard maths, there was definitely the softer skills, because I think today we talked about, coaching and being in an environment to be able to communicate. And actually you can often find with studying is that you kind of hone one skill or the other. Yes. Did you feel it was an equal balance between the two?
Yeah, well, again, in the course, there was the option to do the department at the time. It's changed a little bit now, but the department at the time was aligned with risk management. So there was quite a lot around that, and psychology modules and things that in amongst that same topic. And so then that was an opportunity to think a little bit more about how people think about risk and human behaviour and so on. I have to say, I was quite strategic. I wanted my first, so I picked the math subject, so I would get the high percentages. So I think actually if I was to go back and do it again, I'd probably do more of the psychology than I did at the time, because as I have learned in the real world, that's actually quite important.
Interesting. And how about hard maths do you do today?
Not a great deal.
I think that's something we all look back on and think, actually, algebra, I definitely don't use that as much as I learned about it at the time.
Advisor 3.0 is back. Financial planners, are you ready? One day, over 20 game-changing sessions, On May the 15th, 2025, London is the place to be if you want to shake up your skills and network with the very best. Oh, did I not mention? Astronaut Tim Peake is a headline speaker. Yeah, that Tim Peake. So get your tickets now at advisor3.0.co. Don't just stay in the game, lead it.
So Lisa, let's talk a little bit about VWM Wealth, because your journey with them has been a rather interesting one, from starting as a paraplanner, as through the courses that we've just described, to kind of being, I would fair to say, for the back end now of an MBO.
Yep.
So do you want to talk us through about where did that all begin?
Yeah, so I just I applied for a position with VWM as a paraplanner at the end of a year backpacking. So I was in Buenos Aires and quickly running out of money, and the flights to come back were there and needed to get a job basically. So I had applied. I met Ken, I think, who was the managing director of VWM. He established the company just a few days after I had come back, and he offered me the job on the spot. We got on really, really well. I had another interview elsewhere, which was probably more my comfort zone, which was pensions. So I come from quite a technical pensions background, and I just had a good feeling about Ken. It was just sort of a gut decision, and we worked together really well. He was a really quite a visionary guy, great gravitas, great presence, just a really lovely person who would build rapport very easily with people, and just would attract trust very easily. Just a really nice person, and he was very, very good mentor to me, and kind of forced me out of the technician in the broom cupboard kind of where I was to be more involved with relationships and speaking to clients and things. So I started there. Him and I were a good double act because he was very strategic and leading the meeting and directing the client relationships. He was just introducing cash flow modelling to the company at the time, and we were also moving from a retail custodian to institutional. So it was a bit of a baptism of fire, to be honest, because it was quite a lot of technical work and learning the cash flow modelling and presenting that to the clients at each of the meetings. And it was the first time for the clients and for us each time for the first 12 months. And there wasn't anybody else there for me to learn it from. So it was, I had to learn it, and that was it. But that was a really good experience. We still use it. We love it. And I just really worked and learned a lot from him from a skills perspective. And he had done a lot of years of technical work and the advice, and really had enough of it, sort of had done, been there, done it. And as time had gone on, then he just wanted to work more strategically on the business and started to pass clients over to me, and then had a discussion about his own succession. Ken was a very visionary person, and then he would have a lot of ideas, but he wants the idea done. Whenever he's had the idea, he wants it done yesterday, and then has to maybe just sort of think it through. So whenever he started thinking about his exit, he just, I think, came to the realization that we're having lots of conversations with clients about, well, if you can leave work now and there are other things that you want to do, why are you still there? Yeah. And he really felt that he needed to be authentic to that and sort of take a bit of his own advice. And then also, whenever we were looking at different paths for his succession, I think quite quickly he decided that a sale to a corporate wasn't going to be for him, just for ethics reasons really, and that he didn't want to have the clients to be put into a more corporate offering when they had such a personal offering with us. And so he just asked me one day, and just typical Ken kind of style, just very, well, do you think you would maybe fancy owning the business one day? And I think I was just really a bit young and naive, and yeah, why not? I didn't.
Did you know what MBO meant? As silly as that sounds.
No, because we didn't get to the MBO sort of decision until a little bit later, because after we had a discussion about, me having more of a shareholding in the business. So I bought a little bit of the business after my first maternity leave, and that was to have a little bit of skin in the game. It was a lot of money to me at the time, but it wasn't a lot of money in relation to the value of the company. But that was important for Ken, that I would have some sort of financial commitment. And I got that, that was, I think that was really important. And we then just looked at different options. So we looked at employee ownership trusts. We looked at, a sale to another firm, or maybe more of a corporate, takeover type thing. And then spoke to tax advisor that we know really well who would refer work to us. And we had a couple of clients who had done management buyouts. And so he said, look, I think that's what really you should do. And we started looking at that, and that sort of ticked the boxes for us at the time. So I think that just allowed Ken to just start getting some money off the table, and for him to step back, because one of the things that became really apparent to him was that an MBO was quite a long process, and he didn't want to be starting it at 65, and then by the time he gets his money out, he's well into his 70s, and he's not then able to have done the things that he wanted to do. So the timeline for it, whenever he sort of decided that that's what he wanted to do, that just became earlier and earlier and earlier. And then he came in after, and it was before the summer holidays in 2018, and said, how would you feel if we just got on with it whenever I came back from summer holidays? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And I didn't really know what I was letting myself in for. Honestly, I was so naive.
And I loved this phrase that you'd shared with me about, and forgive me, geek in the cupboard.
Yeah.
And I loved that. And I fell about laughing when you first told me, because I thought it's so true of a lot of us, where you fall into one camp or the other, and therefore learning the skills. And it's something that I think you're now saying that you've adopted as part of your role in the business, in terms of making sure that nobody's in the cupboard. And just for absolute clarity for those that are listening to the podcast, Lisa doesn't actually lock anybody in the cupboard, and nor did Kenny lock anybody in the cupboard. It's a metaphor, but it's something that you're passionate about now, in terms of recognising to upskill. And I think that, do you think that played a really easy part? Because you talk about your relationship with Kenny in terms of the dual role that you played in a client meeting, and he was very much kind of the relationship holder, the strategist, the visionary for the clients, and your role was to take all of that and put it into practice, essentially. Build the reports, do the paraplanning to make sure that the actual strategy made that happen. Do you think that helped then with what then become an MBO transition, having that dual relationship from the very beginning, in the way that you spoke with clients and they knew both you and Kenny from the very beginning?
Yes, absolutely. And that's something we've taken through into the firm today, that we try to have paraplanners in all of the meetings, and we look at the team as a client-facing team rather than technicians in the back that the families that we work with never see. We really try to get away from that. We had a client advisory board meeting, and not that long after we did the management buyout, we asked them what their experience was of that transition of Ken stepping back completely and the three of us, in the MBO taking over. And all of the clients said the same thing, which was that we didn't really notice, because you and the rest of the team have been leading the meetings, you and Graham in particular, for quite a few years, and so we're used to that relationship. And they loved Ken. They all really, really enjoyed his company, and he would still see them in those sort of transition days for going for lunch and catching up and everything. And they loved the time that they spent with him. But the transition was probably textbook, in that Ken had made himself operationally redundant. And I think as a business leader, that's actually very hard to do. And not many people have got the courage to do that. And he did it really, really well. Ken was the absolute master delegator. He's the best delegator that I've ever met, and I endeavour to get to that. I'm not there yet, but I would like to, be as good at it as he was.
And in terms of, I guess, that first moment when you've gone through this MBO, or step one, let's call it, it's back from summer holidays, we've started the journey, and you said, I don't quite know what I'd let myself in for. What's kind of been your biggest learns or peaks and troughs along the way?
I think it's just the roller coaster of being a business owner. I think I had felt at the time, because I was sort of managing the client relationships, and Graham, one of the other directors, he was coming into that role, and he was taking over a lot of client relationships as well. So we were running the financial planning, which is the business of the business. So you've got all the other stuff in the background that you are involved in from a director's perspective, of maybe being a soundboard or having some input to HR strategy and IT and security and all these other things that finances and things that go on. We all sort of knew quite a lot about that, because the firm's very open. That all that information's quite open in the firm. That was always Ken's way, and I always really appreciated that and have tried to keep that on. But we just didn't have to work too hard to get that all to work. That all just came together really well. But I looked at it and then thought, actually, there's a lot of work here that I'm now supposed to be doing, and I don't really have a clue about any of this. So it was sort of trying to pivot then into different parts of the business. But the business is run well. Like, everybody in the team works very hard, and we got through it. But we had a change of staff from office manager and accounts, and just various staff challenges over the years, like all firms do. But I just remember going into COVID, and we were only 12 months into the MBO, and it was quite a lot of responsibility. So the markets were not good. Staff were trying to sort of support them to make sure they were all fine. We'd done lots of remote meetings with clients, so that wasn't a problem. But I just remember at that time being at home with 2 young children. We were building a house extension at the time. COVID was on. My husband was quite ill at the start of COVID, and there were no tests then, but we thought that he had it. It was tax year end. I just remember it was just like hell. And now I look back on that and think, well, I've got through that, I'll get through anything. So whenever bad things happen now, I really have got a bit of inner peace, which is good. But I think that was the biggest thing. It was just that roller coaster of, as soon as one thing's going well and there's another challenge, but then that means that the work's interesting and it's not boring. Because I think if I had just stayed in as a financial planner, I really love the work, and I love the problem solving, and I really love the client relationships, but you want to be learning all the time and, doing some new work and new challenges, and being in that sort of business owner seat has allowed me to do that. And, the challenges keep coming, and that's good. So
when we think about MBO, and I know that there's kind of lots of statistics out there about, how people do it, when they should start thinking about it. And I think the most recent one that I'd come across was around, actually, if you were, as a business owner, to wake up tomorrow and you had to give your business away, would you rather that be a selling it out or giving it away to an internal, either employee or family member that may be associated with the business? And actually, there was many people that said, I'd really like it to be option B, somebody internally or a family member that was associated. But the reality is, I think in most cases, it ends up being a sale out, because they haven't done that pre-thought. They haven't thought about it, potentially 5, 6, 8 years before they wanted to actually exit, as you were describing between you and Ken. Do you think then the transparency that was always operated, Ken's business model was clearly that everybody knew everything that was going on in all the different segments of the business. Do you think that's a helpful place to be as well? Because do you think that's...
Yeah, I think so. I mean, whenever in my position, a lot of discussion around MBOs and things, maybe if you're in a firm that's maybe not quite so open and transparent, there's a lot of talk about guarantees and warranties and all this sort of stuff. And we just took the attitude that, well, if there are any skeletons in the closet, from an advice perspective, they're going to be my skeletons, because I was the paraplanner. So it gives you a bit of insight that you wouldn't have if you were maybe in a sort of a third party arrangement, because you know the business. So there's a little bit of less risk there. And I think that transparency that we have in the firm just kind of helped for giving people the confidence to be able to do it. But I went to a discussion with a group of other financial planners that I'm involved with, and Brian Hill from Mello had said, look, you have to leave some way. So you're either, you're going to die, or you sell, or somebody else takes over the business. Those are sort of the 3 options, and you really do need to have a plan in place as business owner for each of those, because one of them is going to be happening. And there's quite a lot of people that I come across whenever they ask me about our transaction, that they just sort of think, well, I really enjoy it, so I'm just going to keep going, and that's not a plan.
Yeah.
Financial planners,
builder.
Yeah, well, just financial planners who don't have a plan. It's quite interesting, and I think that financial planners, in some respects as well, they sort of make a rod for their own back, because they live in this world where they see people stepping back gradually from work and still working and having lots of purpose, all the conversations and things that we have for clients. But I wonder sometimes do some financial planners then just use that as a bit of an excuse to not actually have a plan of their own, this sort of half retiring, half not, and not actually getting the infrastructure and the structure in place for other people to either take over the business or if it's going to be a sale, to do that. And I spoke to a guy at a conference that I was speaking at one time, and he was really interested that we had done an MBO, and the reason for it was because he was a corporate deal structurer and said, in my experience, MBOs don't work. And I thought, oh, right, that's interesting, because I'm talking tomorrow about how great they are. So what's your insight here that I don't know? And he said, well, they usually don't work because they take too long. You have to find somebody that is going to be able to actually run the whole business. You have to train them up. You need to test them, give them a bit of responsibility, a bit of sink or swim, and they need to get up to the required standard. Then you need to do the deal. That takes a little bit of negotiation and time. And then you have to do the payout. So you are looking at, 12, 14 years. And most people get up into, I don't know, their 50s or their 60s or whatever the age is. And then they think, right, I need to do something here. And it's almost off the table at the start because they haven't done enough of the planning.
Do you think that you ever felt that you were being tested for the sink or swim before you knew there was either a plan?
It probably was, because that was Ken's way. Ken would always try to push you into, to doing more, and he was really into personal growth. And Ken would have seen things in me that I wouldn't ever have seen in myself. So he's like definitely the sort of the textbook really good mentor. He was just a really lovely guy, and he was very open. I remember him saying to me, Lisa, I wish I had, half of what you've got at 30. Because you've got good relationship skills and you've got the technical knowledge, and a lot of people will have, one or the other. He was he was just really, really encouraging. But yes, he would have been testing me every day in life, I think. I mean, it was hard work, and but him and I, did work well together, and we really enjoyed it. So
I guess as well, there must be an element of understanding the numbers. And what I mean by that is you kind of work in an environment where you've got to understand client numbers, but I suspect business numbers could be very different to actually then when you're entering the stage of negotiating a business's value, and therefore what he would like to sell it for, what you would like to buy it for. Is there a different way of looking at numbers? Did you find yourself in suddenly a different territory?
Yeah, I think really, with hindsight, didn't really look at the numbers enough is probably the honest answer to that. So Ken, based on his own financial planning and modelling, knew what he really wanted or needed to get. And it was just looking at the profits of the company and saying, right, well, how many years will that take to pay out? And was I willing to do that before I had any sort of, reward for equity ownership, et cetera, et cetera. And the way that I looked at it at the time was, if the figure was going to be less, that just meant that Ken was going to stay there and work for another couple of years as he was before the deal would start. So it was going to be the same outcome. So as I sort of said earlier, it was the same thing as, do you fancy doing it? Yeah. And same with the numbers. Yeah, I'll work it out. I really didn't think about it enough, to be honest, but it's worked out fine. So Just talk us through a little bit, because for those that don't know your business, because it's slightly different to everyday business, just talk us through a little bit about, your client bank and the types of clients that you look after, because I'd like to link that back into the MBO as well with another question. But for those that don't know the business, just talk us through what that looks like. Yeah, so we have 105 families that we work with at the moment, and I think we've probably got about another sort of 10, 14 that are prospective clients that are probably just going to come on the next month or two, and we manage £210 million of assets directly for those clients. They are generally self-made people, some business owners. We've got quite a lot of lawyers and high court judges, some general counsels, some partners in law firms and other KCs. And we've just sort of built that really just recommendations between clients that are existing clients, and I like lawyers to work with, so I just
can imagine they're methodical.
Yes, they're methodical. They get professional services, so they get that, and they are engaged, so they're technically minded and they want to understand but also appreciate the value of professional services. So and that works well. And
I think it's fair to say that you described to me that they are high net worth individuals, so that there's a minimum that you require as a business for them to invest, and I guess then that they understand. Did you find that was helpful during the MBO as well, kind of having that client set, A, from a transitional point of view, but more of a, just, you know, they kind of understood the transition that was taking place?
I think so. I think for all the families that we worked with, we had really good relationships with them. You know, Graham and I in particular, and David as well, from an investment perspective. We've been working with the clients for a really long time. So they didn't really, as I'd said, they didn't really have much of a, you know, difficulty in transitioning. And I think that they'll just get the transaction, and whenever we explained it to them, that was all fine. I didn't get any really pushback or anybody really particularly concerned, because Ken had done that so well. He had made sure that the foundations were in place for that. And again, that's another thing that I find whenever I speak to people, that a lot of financial planners, and probably myself included in this, you know, there's some sort of thing in you, well, nobody can do it as well as I can. I've got this wonderful relationship with these clients, and you know, if you look around a room of financial planners, they could all do exactly what you're doing, but the relationship establishment part, that is very personal. So in order to have really good transition, that's the part that needs to be done in advance, and to be done really well, because if you can get to the stage where we were, where the clients didn't really notice, well, they obviously noticed that I'm not Ken, but you know, they were really happy with the transition, because it had actually happened a long time before the actual MBO. So it was really smooth, and they all got it.
And is that why MBO was the most logical route, as opposed to, you know, a sellout? And we touched on this earlier on about that wouldn't be right for the business. Can we just explore that a little bit? You know, how did you settle on it being an MBO as opposed to another exit route? I
think Ken wanted to make sure, firstly, that all of the staff and the clients were going to be okay, and things were going to be as he had set things out at the start. So by that I mean really good service, really good relationships, and the corporate world didn't really sort of fit with that. And Ken would have seen himself as a bit of a rebel, as in, we can do things better here than the corporate way. And he had really hung his hat on that and lived by that, and had done that really well. So to have a corporate sale, I don't think he would have been comfortable in that sort of Tesco test that people will talk about, that if you see the clients out, as Ken has seen, you know, he's bumped into a few, that you'll be hiding from them, because, oh no, they've changed to be client number 005 million. That's some pre-printed letter or whatever at a corporate environment. And we did look at employee ownership trust, and just decided that having a normal board, an EOT board, and meeting schedules and different structures in between that for a team of 9 people, it was just too much. And the MBO just fitted what we wanted to do. So, I mean, it's not obviously the be all and end all for everybody, but it's worked for us. And I remember at the time saying to Ken that if he did a corporate sale, I would not be going. I was really clear about it. And I would only go if he had been taken ill or something like that, you know, and he needed to get, you know, if it was a bit more of a fire sale, then that would be different for health reasons. But otherwise, no way, I'm not going to work for one of these consolidators. I felt quite strongly about it, and I think that feeling has solidified over the years, because I still don't think that's a good model for the clients. I haven't heard anybody yet who's done it, and it's gone really well.
Lisa, do you find yourself sort of pinching yourself, because we just spent the few minutes there of you explaining kind of the different options, the different outlets, ETOs, the different structures, to it not being viable? 10 years ago, probably not thinking I'd have been having these types of conversations, let alone understanding what half those acronyms actually mean.
Yes, absolutely. So it wasn't something that I would have really set out as a really big ambition. It was an opportunity that came my way that I said yes to, and there's a bit of luck in that. There's a bit of making your own luck and being the right person at the right time as well. And Graham, one of the other directors, he's always wanted to be a business owner. It's something that he's always really been interested in. And we went to university together, and I just worked hard and didn't really think about being an aspiration. And then because of the type of clients that we have, those are discussions that we'd be involved in quite a lot, from giving our service to clients, because they're doing management buyouts, they're doing employee ownership trusts and things like that from their own businesses. And then, so it's not the world I expected to be in, absolutely not.
Lisa, I think one thing I'd really like to explore is there's been a huge amount of interest around your journey from the PFS and CI side. Why do you think that is?
I think just because it's a nice story that you can hand your business over in a seamless way, and there's lots of continuity for the clients, and it gives your staff and your team then the opportunity to grow and to develop into leadership roles, etc. And I think that it's a nice alternative to the the corporate sort of takeover. And I think the professional bodies really recognise that there are a lot of financial planning companies that are small teams, and this is a genuine challenge. How do they extract value for the business that they've built? How do they retain members of the team who are perhaps very good business developers or have aspirations of being in a senior management role and taking over? So I think that the professional bodies at the time I did the transactions, I was 38 and female, and there aren't that many female leaders of financial planning companies. There are there are lots, and they're becoming more. And I'm not really a mad bang the drum feminist or anything like that, but it is nice for them to showcase both that process can happen, and that that's a possibility. I think that business owners can look at if they get the planning in line. So it's just nice, I think, just to have an alternative to having a fire sale or a consolidator.
And I think, as well, as we've said a few times during our chat, it's the planning piece, isn't it? It's really an obvious point until that isn't well made. That actually this isn't about saying I have to retire and I have to go out the back door. This is actually really about how do we ensure that we're planning for this, whether or not that's 10, 12 years. And from your point of view, in the journey that we're in at the moment, I think you said it started in 2019.
Yeah.
And your particular MBO is due to complete in 2026?
Yeah, so next year it'll be done.
Any plans to celebrate?
Yes, I'm sure we will be celebrating a lot, because it does weigh on your mind at the start, although again, I probably was just like a little bit naive. It's a lot of money to owe somebody, and to be on the hook for making sure that the company steps up to the plate and continues to grow and provides the level of income and profit that it needs to get the deal to be completed. So that's been it'll be a 7-year journey for us, and it'll be good whenever it's done. Yeah.
And just tell me, feelings-wise, when somebody, from your point of view, you embarked on a journey, and I'm conscious that we keep using this MBO acronym during our conversation, and I'm probably being, again, the terrible builder in this analogy about the fact that we're talking about management buyouts and the role and the transition from that into now being an owner of a business. I guess, what's the one word you describe for anybody listening in today that's considering this or embarking on that journey around one feeling?
It's really just bravery and having a bit of courage just to go into the unknown. And when I was doing one of the talks that I did on this, I had a really good teacher, a guy called David Thomas, who helped me with the presentation and talking, and he really helped my own mindset, which was, well, I just sort of did this and I just sort of did that. And he really put me under pressure to say, but Lisa, most people wouldn't say yes to any of those things because they would want to get all the detail and work it all out first. And we had done a lot of work in the company with Strategic Coach, and they have a little sort of tool called the 4 C's. So I think it's commitment, courage, capability and confidence. And it's all about just saying yes and working it out later. And I, through my journey as in the MBO and in the lead up to it, because he helped me to look back at my trajectory, I really then became a bit more comfortable with the fact that I am somebody who'll just say, well, I'll give it a go. And not everybody is like that. So when you're stepping up into that role, it's a lot of spinning plates and it's a lot of learning and a really good experience and an opportunity to have that. But you need to have a bit of bravery about you to say, well, I don't know how to do it, but I'll work it out.
And I guess trust, for those that are around you to you get through it together. Almost.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a wonderful team, and it's them that have put the work in to get the company to where it is, and people make the difference. If you have your team, if you don't have your team, you don't have anything really. Because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it on my own. And if I'm off and not out of the office for a couple of days, I'm not sure there's that much of an impact. But if some of the team are, you really feel it. So that the work that they're doing and the things that they're focused on, that's what really drives the engine and makes it a success.
And I think that throughout this entire chat, that's been really clear. The team that works with you and alongside you have played a crucial part.
Really lucky.
And do you think that as part of this, you've asked some tough questions of yourself and of your team around, value, service,
yes,
client,
yeah.
What sort of tough questions have you had to ask, maybe yourself or the team?
I think that we've had challenges like every business does, and on your good days you think everything's wonderful, and then on your bad days you think, oh my goodness, who put me in this position, and thought that I could do this, and then you just sort of pick up the bat and get on with it and do it because you've got to. But for us as a team, values are very important, and we don't do this sort of marketing values thing that some do, but we did do an exercise which was really useful that, for any other business owners, I would really recommend doing, was that we just got a big board online of, maybe 100 different values, and then asked each member of the team, right, pick 5 there that you would die in a ditch for. What are the things that are most, because whenever you go through, you a whole big list of like honesty, integrity, it's all just, everybody would just say yes, oh yes, all those things are important to me. But actually trying to pick out the ones that are most important to you, that's actually quite difficult to do, and it must be only 5. So we did that as a team, and they sort of came out in broad topics and subjects that were all the same, and that was a really good indicator to us that we had the right people with the right attitude in the team, because you can have exams coming out of your ears, as most of our staff do, but it's nothing without the attitude, and the attitude has got to be improvement, and it's got to be doing the job well. And I'm so lucky because the team that we all work together really well, and all of our team have got that, and it's not easy to find it. We've had to work quite hard to get that team to be right, as I'm sure any other business owner has had to do.
I feel, Lisa, we'll have to have another podcast to talk about how to employ and find the right team, because there will be a lot of interest around that. Finally, I just wanted to ask you about your plans. What's next for Lisa and for VWM at the end of 2026?
I think we're just getting to the point now where, as a team, we're starting to look and think about what do we want to do with the business going forward. So we've been really fortunate in that we've got lots of recommendations from professional connections from the families that we work with, and so the business has grown. And I think we're now trying to go into an era where we're just trying to continually build that client-facing team, and to have a real focus on the team in the office being more and more client-facing, and bringing other people into roles where they're doing that. And I really want to probably get to the point where I am spending a bit more time being the managing director and trying to get that balance between that and advising the clients, because it's a hard balance to strike. And I enjoy doing the advice, but I probably have I probably have enough sort of space now to try and think about, well, what other things do I want to do, and start to be a bit more strategic about where we're taking the company. So if that's going to be partnerships, and I really need to also be thinking about, are we going to do another type of management buyout structure in the future, or what else will we do? So before the call, we had a talk, and I had found really useful a session that I'd gone to that Ruth Sturkey from the Red House had done with sort of just talk about Paradigm Norton and their employee ownership trust. And so I think I'd be quite open to having another look at that, because I do think that there does seem to be this momentum now in financial planning where all financial planners think that they're entrepreneurs, and I really don't think that. I disagree. And I think that they're more like accountants and solicitors, and that they're professional services people who have set up businesses and have a great deal of business acumen, and have got to have that to get it to work. But there's this sort of ongoing capitalization of this client income perpetually. And if you go across to other professional services, it's the person who set the business up, maybe that EOT mechanism allows them to get some money out, but after that, then the client income and what happens within the business is used to pay the staff for being entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs or whatever you want to call them. And that's maybe an avenue I think that might take off in the future, because you just see more and more and more, particularly in private equity space, it just looks more and more like a big Ponzi scheme. I think we would want to try and get the continuity that we have had for whenever we hand the baton over. And I think it's just, for us, it's about trying to get the right people into the team who want to be advisors, and to making sure that they've got the resources and the structure behind them to empower them to do that role. I mean, I certainly don't want to be the only advisor, and I'm not, so that's great. You know, we've got that sort of started in the team, and that's going really well. And it's just, if you're not growing, you're dying, I guess. So it's just to keep on.
So MBO 0.2?
Possibly, yeah, possibly.
Oh, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a wonderful hour to sit with you and just catch up. And to be honest with you, I could spend the afternoon doing it. But yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks so much for having me. Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's show. Massive thanks to my production crew, especially Jake Osha, Melissa Canham, and the entire team. And of course, to our sponsor, Timeline, the market-leading provider of integrated planning technology and model portfolio service to advisors. I do hope you've enjoyed today's show. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us your review there. Until next time, goodbye.